Welcome back to Buckets WNBA edition. I am your host, Jim Turvey, back from a little vacation. We had Brian Fonseca hosting last week. That was awesome. Had a couple good guests on. We had Joe Dolera in the fold. He's going to be in the fold even more down the home stretch here. I am doing a solo episode today. I'm going to try and be setting up a pretty fun, I think, episode next week with potentially two guests to do like a big playoff preview. So going solo tonight to kind of save some of those guests up. We should be back to pretty much normal on the next Tuesday episode. We might be slotting some Joe Dolera in there, but we'll have plenty of Dano down the stretch as well. But for today, again, will just be me. We'll cover the Friday slate. I'll do a couple of mailbag questions, and it should be a briefer episode. Friday slate, we got 3-game slate. Not the craziest, honestly. I'm going to touch on this in some of the capping here. It's not quite the end of the season I think WNBA fans would want. We've got the Lynx locked in at the top seed. We know Dallas is at the bottom seed. There's a chance that the Sparks could make a push for that last playoff seed, but honestly, given schedule stuff, it looks like we kind of know the 8 seeds. It looks like, the 2 through 4 is really tight. 3 teams tied at 14 losses right now. Recording on Thursday night, watching that Aces Lynx game. 3 teams tied at those 14 losses, but I guess second round home court is a big deal for that 2-3, but not the craziest. Nothing going on that's too chaotic there. Liberty looked like they're pretty much locked into going on the road in round 1. I don't think many people saw that. We'll talk Liberty today on a couple different fronts. There's nothing too crazy in this final week. I think we'll have loved a little bit more chaos, especially around that final playoff spot. So maybe if last I looked, Dallas was actually ahead a little bit on the Valkyries. If they could pull off a road upset tonight, makes things way more interesting. Valkyries do have a couple hard games after that, but kind of looks like we know who's going to be in the postseason. Even kind of looks like we know mostly who's going to be home and who's going to be road, with the biggest question being that 2-3-4, how that settles out for second round home court potentially. But let's get to the Friday slate. As I mentioned, 3 games. We got the Chicago Sky at the Indiana Fever. Fever laying 13.5, total of 158. That's down about 5 points from the open. We got Angel Reese potentially suspended for this game. We'll talk through that in our cap of a best bet here. She racked up her 8th technical foul in the most recent game, so she's going to have to, either try and get that pushed back or just take the game off. Chicago's out of the postseason. I'm kind of leaning that's the direction it'll go. We got Haley Van Lith, questionable. Not a huge impact on the spread. And for the Fever side, they lost another player out for the season. Again, not a huge name, but it's Chloe Bibby. She's officially out for the season. Big news, though, is Caitlin is officially done for the season. Don't love the lack of transparency here. We kind of got roped along, not really hearing much news on this front for a long time, but it kind of became evident the longer she was out that, it didn't seem super likely they're going to get her back. They're sitting in that 8 seed right now. I think the Lynx are kind of, pretty happy to hear that news, because if they were the 8 seed and got Caitlin back, I think that would be a pretty tough draw. It'd be like I worked all season for this top seed, and now we got to play Caitlin and a fully healthy Fever squad that's been playing well without her. Now that she's out for the season, again, I think that's likely the 8 seed there for Indiana, and I'd pick the Lynx to kind of roll in that series. Second game of the night, we got the LA Sparks at the Atlanta Dream. Dream are laying 7, totals 168.5. Sparks are healthy. Sparks need this one. Sparks really need this one if they have any chance. Like we said, they're a couple games out of that final postseason spot with a tough schedule and an easy schedule for the Fever. So it's not looking too good, but hopefully they can, kind of keep it interesting. They are healthy, like I said. For the Dream, Alicia Gray missed the last game. Haven't seen any injury news on her yet. I would guess that they roll her out at least as questionable. Good news for them is they did see Jordan Canada take a big minutes jump in her second game back to kind of fill in for Alicia Gray there. She'd only played about 20 minutes her first game back and was up to high 30s in the last game. So the Dream are looking good. Again, they kind of need it in the sense that they probably are eyeing that. They love that 2 seed. If they can get the 2 seed, that would get them home court in the second round, no matter who they play. I think that's something that they have to really be looking at. The bracket's shaping up where the Liberty are probably going to be in that 4-5 spot, which means we'll probably get Lynx Liberty rematch in the second round, barring any upsets. If the Liberty can even win, they're going to have to go on the road against that 4 seed, looking like it might be the Aces or potentially the Dream here. I kind of see it being the Aces Liberty, which means Liberty are going to have to go into Las Vegas and into Minnesota if they want to defend their title. So they will definitely be pretty battle tested. Final game of the night is those Liberties. The New York Liberty are at Seattle. They opened as an underdog. I want to make sure I get the latest up-to-date line for this because I saw this line was moving throughout the day. We now have it still is. The Lynx are Liberty are 2-point underdog, so it's Seattle -2 with a total of 159.5. For that game, we have Sabrina Ionescu and Niara Sable both questionable. Otherwise, New York is finally starting to get healthy. That's what you really want to see as they head to the postseason. Seattle, fully healthy, or at least the names that have been there for most of the season are still there. So that should be a really good game. Seattle does still need to win. They're 22-20. We loaded up on Seattle win total, which just cleared, which is nice. And then to make the postseason, and barring a collapse, they will look to clinch that postseason. But if anyone could collapse, it is Seattle. We have seen it in game for them. This would be an in-season collapse. A little nervous. Let's just love to see them clinch, so we get that bet that we really loaded up on come future season. Get that money in our accounts. That would be awesome. So looking at that Friday slate, best bets. I'm gonna rattle off 3 as we always do, and then I'll go into the logic for each. I'm gonna take Cameron Brink under points and rebounds. I'm gonna take Camila Cardosa on a rebound ladder, and I'm leaning on the Liberty money line. Let's start with Cameron Brink. Now, a lot of the exacts aren't out yet. I'm looking for the combo for Cameron Brink here on points plus rebounds. We don't have that out. I will say I do like the under on just her points at 5.5. I was betting Cameron Brink overs when she first was back. I was thinking that the minutes were going to slow. First couple games I sat out, and then the third, fourth, fifth game, I was kind of eyeing some of her overs because I noticed her, classically when a player comes back, they kind of work them back in the rotation, start at 10 minutes, go up to 14, get to 18. And I saw Brink as probably like an 18 to 20 minute player. Hasn't really happened that way. Her minutes have stayed actually pretty low. Some of that has been foul trouble, and some of that was in some of the previous caps of saying, I think her minutes are artificially lowered by this foul trouble. I think once she gets back to full strength, her actual minute allocation will be like 18 minutes. Last game, she played 11 minutes without foul trouble. So I think the Sparks are pretty happy with, Hamby and Azurá Stevens are an awesome front court. Cameron Brink is adjusting. She's still in her second season. She's missed a ton of games in those 2 seasons. So we get a number here. It's kind of funny. It's just because she's a big name that we're getting these props. But we do have a 5.5 point line for Cameron Brink that I really like the under on. It's a little juiced, I believe -128, but she's gotten under that 5.5 point total in 10 of 15 games. Atlanta is the 3rd best defense. They also allow the fewest rebounds per game. And Bree Jones is kind of created in a lab to get her in foul trouble. Now, I don't know if we'll see her on Bree Jones. It could be that when Bree goes to the bench, that's when she comes on. But even still, then it's going to probably be Brittany Griner. Brittany Griner is another big who's very good at drawing fouls on opposing centers. I think Brink could definitely be in foul trouble, even if we don't get, even if they finally bump a little bit in minutes. But again, she only played 11 last game. For Cameron Brink to score 6 points in 11 minutes, that's a pretty big ask for her offensively. She's just not really at that point in her game. And again, this is a good Atlanta defense as well. So I'm looking at Brink unders. I'm looking at Cardoso overs. Camila Cardoso, she's really been playing well of late. She's really kind of settled into a groove here. I don't see that Angel Reese tech getting rescinded either. I think she'll just be out for the game. If she does challenge it, we might get a chance at it being overturned. But honestly, if you watch the game, she's kind of flailing around. That's a high hand. I don't think that we are going to see that tech rescinded. That looked like a pretty well-deserved Angel Reese technical foul there, swinging at the head of Aaliyah Edwards. So if we don't have Angel Reese, you might be thinking all things Cardoso. Camila actually scores fewer points with Angel off the court. She scores more sharing the court with Angel, which I think is a credit to Angel's playmaking. But the rebounds fly up with Angel off. That makes sense. That's what Angel's known for. She grabs a ton of rebounds. With her out there, there's just way more rebounds for Sky players in general, and Cardoso is obviously the tallest of them. Her rebounds really jump up using PPP stats there, almost 10%. So I kind of want to shoot the moon here. I want to make a bet that is going off of Angel Reese being out. And, we don't have that news for sure at this point. But if we can kind of play the unknown and get in at a decent number on some of these alts, that's what I'm going to be looking at. She's been averaging pretty good numbers on the glass in general. I'm looking and just making sure we have the exacts here. If we get her to do 12 plus rebounds, you can get around plus 240. I love that number. And then listen, she got 12 last time in 19 minutes against this Indiana Fever team. Now, I think that's a pretty high number, but I think she'll play more than that this game. And that game was without Angel. Not a surprise she cleared the glass. So if we go all the way up to 15, we're able to get a plus 1260 out there in the market right now. So I'm going to be sprinkling a little bit of the whole ladder here for Camila Cardosa, hoping that we do get that injury news and then, things shift a little bit and we got ahead of it, especially on, kind of the extremes. I do like to, when you're playing the game with trying to jump the line on injury news, go to the extremes. Don't go to like a minus 150 because that's, again, you're betting a smaller amount to win more. Leverage that information or the lack thereof in your favor. And finally, I lean to the Liberty in this Storm Liberty game. I want, if I had to guess here, what I would have them do is guess how many minutes the core five of New York. So that's Natasha Cloud, Sabrina Ionescu, Emma Miesemann, Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones. That's likely the five that the Liberty will have on the court in the most clutch moments of their postseason games. Now it's a big three. Emma playing the three, you can get picked on a little bit. Maybe you want Fibic out there, sometimes for defense, but those are the five best Liberty players. So if I had a guest on, I would quiz them and say, how many minutes has this group played together all season? I'll give the listener a minute to pause if they want and try and think, through games missed here and there and try and come up with an answer. The answer is 0 minutes. They have never played together yet. This core group, the Liberty, that when they signed Emma, we're like, okay, this is a team that should be feared. This is, I bet them that day when Emma signed at plus money to win the title. Now that bet is not looking good right now. They're going to have to take a really hard path to the finals just to even get there, like we just said. But I want to see this team in action together. I think that if Sabrina plays now, again, they don't have a ton of motivation to play her. And that is if you're going against this bet, I think it's that you say Seattle still has motivation. They still need to get into the postseason. The Liberty really aren't going to move up to that 5 seed, I don't think. Now, if the Aces lose tonight, it opens the door a little bit. But I think they'll think big picture here. I want to wait on the Sabrina news. But Sabrina plays, I'm going to be pretty interested. Now, you could say first game back, it's going to take a little time for everyone to get used to each other. But I do think that things are going to click for New York. And if we're being honest, if they can get everyone healthy for the postseason, that's all that really matters. We've seen teams who struggle, like they're they won the title. There's that hangover that is just, you can't help but have it a little bit. Let's see if they really get firing. If they get, kind of rattle off some big wins here down the stretch, get some momentum into that first round series, I'll still be interested in New York. The path is going to be really tough. And they're such a big name that's going to be hard to get a good number. But I think in this game, if it's a close game, I'm really going to like to lean the Liberty way. I also think the under, even though it's taken a bunch of steam already, it's pretty interesting. If New York starts to struggle or starts off this core five struggling a little bit, I think it would be on the offensive end. And Seattle, in tight games, the offense really struggles. So I think the under in this game is a look as well. But I lean towards the Liberty money line here. Those are the three plays for the day. We'll actually talk a little bit more about the Liberty in a second when we kind of crack open the mailbag. But first, I want to do a quick shout out to, if you've been on social media, you've seen some of the action folks debuting some of these. We've been teasing it in these reads here about how football is here. We've got some huge improvements and updates. And the playbook feature, if you have not seen this, basically you can take a screenshot and then that hops into your app and you can bet it. It makes things so streamlined. So if you're tailing folks at action, this playbook feature is really a game changer. It also kind of allows you to do it on social media. If you tag playbook, it'll kind of create the parlay for you. Really cool stuff going on there. But to get the most of the app, you really need to be an Action Pro subscriber. It's only with Action Pro you get the real-time pick alerts to get into playbook and be able to tail all of the team of experts. If you're a Buckets WNBA listener, you can save $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. You just got to go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use the code Buckets20. That's actionnetwork.com/pro. Use the code Buckets20 for $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. Let's go into the mailbag. I'm going to lead with one that kind of deals with what we were talking about with the Liberty. This is from Spartan Basketball, good guy who's always kind of in touch in the DMs on Twitter. Really good guy. As the name suggests, and definitely a smart basketball mind who, when he sent this, I kind of laughed. He said, no, I'm serious, and tried to make the case for it. I'll push back a little bit, but he says, if you're the 2 to 4 seed, would you rather face the Valkyrie or Liberty in the first round of the playoffs. So again, I kind of chuckled because it's like the Valkyrie who, the preseason win total was 10.5 versus the Liberty who was 30.5. If you're coming in with any sort of a prior, it's obviously going to be, I got to be I got to be more scared of the Liberty. And I do think that's the answer. But the fact that this is even a conversation is pretty wild. What I'm curious with the Liberty is the Miesemann of it all, because it really is kind of a weird thing going on. We talked about how the core five haven't even played a minute together. But Emma has been really good on the team. So she has the second best net rating on-off on the team. That's a plus 7.3, which basically just means the team's net rating with her on versus with her off is a plus 7.3 in her favor. We're going to talk more about this net rating on-off because it's there's a later question that's really going to kind of lean on that. But basically, it's saying she's having a good impact on the game, second best to Stewie if we use this one metric. But what's interesting is the core five without Stewie, but with Fibic in, which is Cloud, Sabrina, Fibic, and Emma, that five is plus 2.4. So that's when Stewie has been out, we've really seen a drop to kind of, plus 2.4 net rating is not the level we think of as this Liberty team. It's probably about a 5 seed in the playoffs, to be honest. However, if it's Cloud, Sabrina, Fibic, Stewie, and JJ, so the five who were there before Emma, that's a plus 25.5. That's a title winning team. Again, I don't think you don't want Emma here. Her impact has been really strong. It just with that unit, it hasn't popped yet. Now we haven't seen the actual core five play together. That's why I think that in these last 3 games, I really want Sandy and the Liberty to kind of make sure they get some minutes together before the postseason. I think the Liberty will be playing their players because of that. They need to get some minutes together with their best players. But we literally haven't seen it. And when we have seen, what we have seen of Emma with the starters has been far more pedestrian than what we saw Fibic with the starters. So is that going to be a thing that Sandy is weighing? Is that just small sample? It's a little confusing, to be honest. I do think there's some of this title hangover with the squad. And I get that the Valkyries in a short series, they're scary. I've underestimated them a lot, even after having given them credit after a quick start. But they just keep winning, and that is to their credit. And I get that traveling to that stadium is going to be brutal. That is one of the best crowds, and we're going 1-1-1 in the first round. So if you're an East Coast team, say Atlanta, and you got to you better win that game 1, because if you lose that and then you're headed to Valhalla potentially with your round 1 life on the line, that's going to be a terrifying thing. And listen, is there a coach that I would want in the postseason more than Natalie Nakase? Probably not many. I have Cheryl Reeve. I'll take Cheryl Reeve. Maybe Sandy, because she's on, she has done it. She's gotten title. Natalie has some experience with the Aces, but she doesn't have experience as a head coach. I think she'll be a great coach, but I do think we need to pump the brakes a tiny bit, just if we're fully comparing the Valkyrie to Liberty and I don't think Spartan was saying this as title contender. It was just round 1 where you have a little 3-game series, and there's a lot of variance that can happen there. But the Valkyries still do struggle against really good teams. They got the win over the Liberty for sure. But overall, what they really do well is they take care of business against the bad teams. You're not going to see those bad teams in the postseason. It's only good teams. So I do think that the Valkyries will likely go away in round 1. But listen, I have underestimated them time and time again this season, even as I've adjusted my priors. I haven't been stuck on calling this a 10-win team. I just think that I'm taking the Liberty. I'm taking the defending champions who added Emma Miesemann and Natasha Cloud. I think that things are going to click. I think it's really easy to be a prisoner of the moment and say, man, it doesn't just seem like it's a small sample. It seems like the Liberty are playing pretty poorly. Overall, I think we're going to look back in a month or so and say, yeah, that was a crazy stretch from the Liberty. They righted the ship, and they still showed the level that they're capable of. But I love that question. I love that is even being a question. If you told someone at the start of the season that this would be a question that would be happening before the postseason, I think they would have looked at you like you had not just 3 heads, maybe like 18 heads. So next question, we'll do 2 more. I'm going to kind of combine them here. Nav asks, who are the 3 players who have impacted the winning the most this season that casual fan might not know about? This is one of my favorite questions we got. I really love this question. Had a blast answering it. And Michelle asks, who would you say are the 5 most improved players this season? I honestly can't remember if we did address this briefly on another episode, so I'll do it kind of quickly. in part because I'm putting these two together because my number one for both of these, the player who's impacted the winning but the casual fan might not know about, and my most improved player, or at least in the top 5 for most improved this year, is Naz Hillman. Now, Naz Hillman is right now in the running for 6th player of the year, even though she has moved into the starters role in the second half of the season. But really what we've seen from her is just an all-around improvement this season. She has a good case for most improved. And I wonder at times if she's going to split the vote between most improved and 6th player of the year because of that. She went from, I think I've said this before on the podcast, but I think it bears repeating. She went from 1 made 3 in 3 seasons in the W before this year to 48 made 3s this season. That's just adding an entire new part of your game. That's incredible. She's seen a jump in rebounds. She's seen a jump in assists. Her net rating differential, again, a stat we'll be talking through again soon, is among the best in the league. Her impact all season has been really impressive and has made it so that Brittany Griner is now a weapon for Atlanta off the bench because Naz Hillman has been so good in that starting role. That's definitely not the level she was at last year. So really, really cool. Definitely one of the breakouts of the season. I think who's going to win most improved player of the year is Veronica Burton. It looks like the market has moved that way, and pretty deservedly so. She averaged 3 points, 1.5 rebounds, and 2 assists last season. This year, she's at 12 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6 assists per game. And the playmaking has been amazing. She's averaging over 10 assists per game in her last 6 games. The Valks are asking her to be in that kind of lead guard creator role for a player who barely could stick in the W last year. It's an incredible accomplishment from her, the jump she has made. Midway through the season, I was kind of like, I think it's just she's getting more minutes. She's actively playing a lot better. To see the jump in usage that she has seen and to see that come with a jump in efficiency is basically unprecedented. That's the kind of stuff that does win this award. So if she is able to do it, it really, really is impressive. And I think there's a theme here for our first 2 players is a coach unlocking a player. It's Carl Smesko with Atlanta, and it's Natalie Nakase with Veronica Burton. And I think our friend Carl there gets credit for another one here, and Alicia Gray. That leap we talk about going from all-star to all WNBA, it's a really hard leap. It's kind of, not to do the NBA thing, but it's kind of what we saw from Cade Cunningham. He was in borderline all-star, and then he became really all NBA, and he was in line to win most improved before he got hurt down the stretch there. She's become kind of the lead engine for one of the best offenses in the league. She's seen increases in her playmaking, but she's also seen increases in her scoring efficiency. She's right up there among the league leaders in threes made this season. She often would kind of settle for those mid-rangers in the past. Now she's really kind of the epitome of, threes and getting the line. And again, that's about as good as it gets in a system like Carl Smesko's. So the leap she has made has been very, very impressive. Another player with a new coach, Azurá Stevens, I'll shout her out here for career highs in points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, 3-point field goal percentage, win shares, just minutes played. She's been on the court more this season. It's allowed her to really kind of increase her value to the Sparks for a player who's been around the league for a while. So, some of these players, Burton is like a 4th year. Naz Hillman, I think, is 4th year as well. Alicia Gray has definitely been around, but she's been at the all-star level. Azurá, we kind of had fluctuations. She showed flashes of a borderline all-star player early in her career, but now we're almost in I think it's year 9 or 8 or 9, 10 maybe for Azurá. To be doing all this is really impressive. And, Lynn Roberts, new coach, really unlocking stuff for Azurá. So really cool to see that out in LA. And then I'm going to cheat for my 5th person here for most improved because I want to use Dominique Malonga first half, Dominique Malonga second half. If you've been listening to the pod, you will not be surprised by this. But in the first half of the season, she averaged 4 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Second half, she's averaging 12 points, 7 rebounds, and assists in 20 minutes a game. Basically doubled her minutes per game and made more production out of it. She was at 9 minutes a game for the first half of the season, 4 points. More has tripled that and not nearly, tripled the minutes on the court. So that's really cool to see. We got Brian Fonseca taking a cold shower after he gave out her MVP pick for next season. I think maybe a little quick. Let's get her to the All-Star game first. But I do think that the ceiling here is awesome and that really cool to see what she's done in the second half. And if we're crediting coaches along the way, I've given Noelle Quinn my fair share of guff for how she's handled some of these these late close games. But seeing the improvement from Malanga and being able to find ways to get her minutes in that really talented front court, I think she does deserve credit here. Let's go to the second question that overlapped at the start, where we have Naz Hillman as one of the three players who's impacted winning the most that the casual fan might not know. I'm going to read off a list, and I hope this isn't too bad of a podcast cliche here of just kind of reading off a list. But basically, what I went to for this is this net rating on off differential here. So again, this is your net rating as a team with this player on the court. So we use A'ja Wilson. She is the best net rating differential. So with A'ja Wilson on the court, the Aces are plus 9.3 as a team. That's usually around the best number in the league. Maybe in some seasons you get like a plus 12, but it has you as a top tier team, a title contender, plus 9.3 net rating. With her off, they're minus 15.7. That's like easily the worst in the league. That if you did that as a team, you would be the worst team in the league. So that differential, the difference with A'ja on the court versus off the court, is plus 25 in over 1,000 minutes. It's honestly one of the best cases for her as MVP. We'll get to Fee in a few as I go down the list here. But A'ja Wilson, no surprise, in part because she's one of the best players in the league, in part because that Aces bench is just truly terrible. So whenever she is out, it is very scary, as you can see by the minus 15.7. I'm going to rattle off some of the other names who are at the top of this list of impact by net rating on-off differential. Second is Jackie Young, plus 19.7. That's not surprising. She kind of shares with A'ja. Becky Hammond kind of takes them off at the same time. Not to take away from Jackie, she's a great player. I don't think she's the second most impactful player. The next player is Skylar Diggins, plus 18.7. The story's same in Seattle. You'll see, we'll get to three names for Seattle. It's really that their bench is so bad. Not to take away from Skylar, she's great, and I do think that the offense really plummets without her on the court. But I do think part of that is the really bad bench. The number 4 player is kind of surprising me. I didn't highlight her here only because I think people do know how good she is. But I do think she gets a little underrated. It's Dearica Hamby is at plus 17.2. The Sparks, they do have a decent bench. They've got Cameron Brink often coming in for Dearica Hamby. So this one does give some credence to, do the Sparks really want to keep running it with Azurá Stevens and Dearica Hamby? This net rating differential would suggest that that's a pretty good partnership there. The next player is one who I'm going to highlight here in this question from Nav, with the players who the casual fan might not know as much. I apologize. It's someone, if you listen to this podcast, you definitely have heard me talk about. But again, I'm trying to pay attention to stuff. So if you're listening, hopefully you are not the casual fan and you do know some of these names. I'm going to say Layla Lacan. So she's plus 17 in 640 minutes for the Sun this season. My favorite little Connecticut Sun fun fact is still true with Layla Lacan, and that's it. With her on the court this season, the Connecticut Sun, one of the worst teams in the W, for a while looking like one of the worst teams in W history. They kind of turned things around a little bit. Still one of the worst teams in W. Have a positive net rating this season. That's incredible. That really speaks to the impact she makes. She just turned 21. To me, if I'm the Sun, this is the player that I am building my next iteration around. She's a strong shooter, strong scorer, strong all-around player. The defense is amazing. She's a league leader in steals per 100 possessions right now, among players who have played a significant amount of minutes. She really, really has popped this rookie season. If another year where we didn't have Paige Beckers, she's probably in the conversation with Kiki Iriafen, Sonia Citron. This rookie class, which again I was skeptical of, has been so strong. But she's the one who I really want to keep an eye on and see what Connecticut does. Connecticut has not always handled their rosters best, but I think they've got a gem here in Layla Lacan. I think she really is one of those players who's driven winning. And if you caught on the Sun when they debuted Lacan and were kind of a decent team there for a bit, they covered a bunch of games in a row when she first debuted and the market was a little slow to adjust. I'll keep going down the list here. Chelsea Gray, we already talked about the Aces. She's plus 15. Gabby Williams, we already talked about. The Seattle Storm, plus 13.9. Next is Alyssa Thomas, plus 13.3. This speaks to her greatness as a player. She is always underrated in this MVP race. It looks like she's going to get overlooked again. There was like a 2-week stretch where I thought Dano was going to cash his MVP ticket here for Alyssa Thomas. Didn't quite get there. Incredible player, though. Next up, Nafisa Collier. Needs no explanation. Plus 12.8. I think this plus 12.8 is actually almost as impressive if we're using just this one stat as Asia's plus 25. Because again, the Lynx have the best bench in the league. They really don't drop off that much from the starters. Even with that, Nafisa Collier has a huge difference when she's on the court and not. If she was on the Aces and got to play with that terrible of a bench, I think she'd be right up there with Asia Wilson in terms of that insane plus 25 that Asia has. Next on there's Naz Hillman. We talked about Naz plus 12.3. She's in this tier with, listen, we just said Alyssa Thomas, Nafisa Collier, and now we're saying Naz Hillman. Definitely someone who, not many people would think of for that sort of an impact, but she really has unlocked a lot for Atlanta this season. Next up is a player who is just off of this top three for me, in part because, again, I'm using one stat here. And I do think sometimes you're like, okay, I'm not entirely sure that this person is the 10th most impactful player in the WNBA. Natasha Mack, plus 11.9 in just over 500 minutes. I do think she's been very good, and I think she opens up a lot. I'm going to skip ahead one because Monica Komakani is going to be my third player that is kind of under the radar driving wins. Again, this is a name I have said over and over again this season. I really like her game. She's additive in every measure. And to me, players like that are kind of my catnip, where they take nothing off the table. She's a 40% three-point shooter, a strong defender. She can even create a little bit. She can rebound for a guard. She just does everything. She does it all really well. She's still just 24 years old. As a rookie, didn't get a chance in this league until the Mercury gave her a chance. And I think that we see Alyssa Thomas, Natasha Mack, and Nicole Makani all together there with a really strong net rating differential. I think they're going to be really key. If Phoenix wants to make a run, I know that was the team that Dano and I got on mid-season. I still think there's life here. They've been a little bit slept on lately. I feel like I haven't heard a lot about them, but it's going to be up to Tibbetts to figure out the pieces here, because I just said 3 Mercury players. I didn't say Satu Sabali or Kalia Copper. They're obviously going to have to play those two in big minutes. So then that's 5. Then you have, Sammy Whitcomb's got to get minutes. There's other players here who are interesting pieces for Phoenix. Making it all work is going to be interesting to see how that happens in the postseason. And if they have these weapons matchup wise, maybe that unlocks some stuff for them. Aaliyah Boston plus 10.9 in 1,200 minutes. She's so underrated. It's almost gotten comical at this point with, all the stories out of Indiana are Caitlin. That's fair that she's dealing with injury this season. Leah Boston is just so awesome. She anchors entirely a defense on her own. And offensively, she's just so solid. It's never going to blow you away with, 40-point games or anything crazy, but she's just so solid on that end. Kelsey Mitchell is with her at plus 10.1. When those two are on the court, that is a really, really good team for the Fever. I just don't think this is their year. They're probably going to match up with the Lynx in the first round. I don't see them being able to challenge there. A very surprising one, I think, because this is a player who, in the offseason, a lot of people gave a lot of crap to the move to get this player. Ariel Atkins is at plus 10.4 in terms of net on-off differential here, in almost 1,000 minutes. When she has played, the Sky have actually been a halfway decent team. She just hasn't played a lot. And then when she's off, they're really, really bad. That's what it comes down to. But it's enough for me to see, the Angel Reese comments this week made a big stir. Shocking. Angel definitely knows how to get in the headlines. I think she put her foot in her mouth again. But listen, I actually think that overall, the push to kind of get some good players in Chicago is something that they should be doing. If you have Ariel Atkins and Angel Reese, I think that those two as a core make a lot of sense. I've heard some people calling to trade Camila Cardosa. I kind of think that makes sense. That makes sense too. The shared time between with Angel and Camilla on the court just hasn't really gone all that well. Angel can't really space it out. Camilla can't really space it out. They get too bogged down. So if I were Chicago, I would look to mix things up, but not blow things up. I would keep Ariel Atkins. I'd keep Angel Reese. I'd even give Tyler Marsh another season. I love what I saw from him. I think the continuity there is important. You don't want to just reset every single year, get a new coach. That'll be 3 coaches in 3 years for Angel. I don't think you want to do that either. Invest in this team. Keep Ariel Atkins, keep Angel Reese, move some pieces around them. It's a tough league, but see if you can maybe, sneak into a final playoff spot. They're going to be giving up their draft pick this year. Definitely a tough bet, but impressive to see Ariel Atkins on this list. Next, we got Nneka Ogwumike. We talked about Seattle and their bench, but Nneka is also a great player. Not surprising to see her here. And the last one, I'll do her as an honorary 4th player to impact winning, just because she's kind of, for me, between that tier of Naz Hillman, Layla Lacan, Monica Cohen-Makani, where that matches what I'm seeing with my eyes. Those three players, when I watch, I'm like, those are players who drive wins. They are very under the radar, but impactful players. Whereas Natasha Mack, I don't often watch and be like, that's a player who's driving winning. I think she's solid, but to me, she's kind of a surprise name on this list. But the final one here is Shug Sutton. She's plus 10.1 in over 1,000 minutes. I'm very surprised by this. She's gotten a reputation kind of bouncing around the league of maybe not being a winning player. It's at least putting on my radar. I would not give one season of a kind of a funky season in Washington to say, oh yeah, Shug Sutton is one of those like Monica Cole-Makani types that I want on my team. But I'd be interested. This stat alone, which I am going very heavy on this one stat here, but I do think it's a pretty telling stat. In over 1,000 minutes, if there's a 10-point gap between when you're on the court and off the court for your team, I think that's pretty telling. So if I were a team out there that needed a two guard, I would look at Shug Sutton. I would give her a chance. And if some of this stuff sticks, I think that's pretty impressive. She's also had some pretty nice moments late in games, had a clutch 3 to tie a game recently. I'm interested. She's a player who I kind of overlooked for a long time, to be honest. And with her name making on this list, drew some interest. So she would be kind of my 3A to kind of keep an eye on there. I went long on that, but I really love that question. And those are the questions I had today. I kept it kind of brief with the mailbag. Only 3 games, like I said, on the slate. I'll reiterate those best bets there in case you were kind of skipping around and wanted to get the bets, and that's it. But I'll say I've got Cameron Brink under 5.5 points. If we get her points plus rebounds, I'm going to like that as well. And I've got Camila Cardoso on a rebound ladder, 12 plus rebounds, 15 plus rebounds. And then lean towards the Liberty on the money line. That's sitting around even money right now against Seattle. So that'll do it for this episode. I hope you don't mind the solo episodes. But like I said, we should have Joe Dolera on Tuesday's episode, and then we should have 2 guests who should be absolutely perfect to preview the playoffs. Because guess what? A week from today, we will be done with the WNBA season. That's it, folks. We will be getting into the playoffs. We will know all the seeding. We'll know all of the stuff to break down. So we will be doing that in depth next week for this episode. I'll try and, I'm gonna have to rein it in because we could go 2-3 hours on a preview like that. So we'll have to keep it tight. We'll do all the work beforehand to keep it really everything you're hearing is bet action oriented, because that this playoff should be a blast. We really should get some marquee matchups even as early as round 1 with the Liberty slipping down the way they did. So, all right, if you'd like to tail any of the bets we talked about today, look at the quick slip link in the episode description. And obviously, if you're not following or don't have the Action Network app, go check that out. I've talked about all the sweet new features. So you really got to get on that. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to it as a podcast, rate and review. Those really do mean a lot, and get more eyeballs so that we can, put out a good product here. My thanks to David Payne on the audio, Gifford Gould on the YouTube team, and for myself tonight, let's get buckets.